This story focuses on Leon, a photographer who loves roaming the city in search of the perfect angles to capture. He lives in an apartment with his girlfriend, Maya. One day, Leon goes with his colleague, Jurgis, to meet Susan, a gallery exhibition manager. With high hopes, he hands over some of his photographs. However, Susan seems unimpressed. According to her, Leon's work feels bland, lacks character, and doesn't tell a story. That night, Leon feels restless. Nightmares haunt him, keeping him awake. Seeking inspiration, he decides to go out with his camera. His steps lead him to a deserted subway station. As he's about to descend, he notices 3 men harassing a woman. Instinctively, he captures the moment with his camera before trying to intervene. One of the thugs doesn't take it well, but Leon swiftly points to the CCTV camera, warning them that their actions are being recorded. Unwilling to take the risk, the thugs leave, allowing the woman to continue her journey. She thanks Leon before boarding an empty train. Inside the train, she puts on her earphones, trying to calm herself, but suddenly a mysterious man emerges from the shadows and, without warning, kills her with a hammer. The next morning during breakfast, Leon reads the newspaper. The woman he saved last night, Erica, has been reported missing after boarding the subway. Leon rushes to the police station and hands over the photos of the thugs as evidence. He is convinced they are the culprits. However, Detective Lynn seems skeptical. She takes the photos and gives Leon her card, asking him to contact her if he finds any other leads. Back at the gallery, Leon shows Susan his latest photos. This time, her expression changes. She likes his work and asks for 2 more photos with a stronger character for an upcoming exhibition. Susan's words ignite Leon's passion. That night, he returns to the subway, hunting for more photos. Meanwhile, inside a train, 3 passengers start noticing something unusual. Their route isn't what it should be. The lights flicker, and an eerie silence fills the air. Then, from the far end of the car, a man appears. His eyes are piercing, his posture imposing, and in his hand, he grips a gleaming hammer. His name is Mahogany. That night, outside the subway station, Leon continues searching for interesting subjects to photograph. Suddenly, from the escalator, a burly man with a cold expression appears. His presence is striking. Immaculately dressed in a black suit, emotionless face, and purposeful stride. Leon is immediately intrigued. Without thinking, he lifts his camera and snaps a picture of the mysterious man. Curiosity takes hold of him. Leon discreetly follows the man as he walks calmly through the shadows of the city. But unexpectedly, the man comes to an abrupt stop. He knows he's being followed. Leon holds his breath, pretending to look elsewhere, then prepares to leave. But before he can take a step, Mahogany is already standing right in front of him. From this close, Leon noticed something that caught his attention. A ring with an 8-pointed star engraved on Mahogany's finger. His heartbeat quickened. Nervously, he made an excuse, saying he was just taking photos. Mahogany stared at him blankly, then glanced away and continued walking toward his apartment. The next day, Leon's curiosity grew stronger. He followed Mahogany again, this time all the way to a meatpacking plant. There, he finally discovered that the man was a butcher. Watching Mahogany expertly slice through slabs of meat with a massive knife sent shivers down Leon's spine. Yet instead of deterring him, it only made him more intrigued. Leon waited until Mahogany finished work, then resumed tailing him to the subway station. Mahogany didn't board a train right away. He simply sat in silence, as if waiting for something. Seizing the opportunity, Leon took a few photos from a distance. When Mahogany finally stepped onto a train, Leon hurried to follow. But his steps were halted when a security officer approached him. "Can I check your camera?" Leon clenched his jaw in frustration as the officer examined his camera, causing him to lose sight of Mahogany. Meanwhile, inside the train, tension escalated. A large man entered the car where Mahogany was seated. His eyes were filled with mockery, and for no apparent reason, he started taunting Mahogany. But Mahogany remained silent, until finally the insults turned into provocation, and when the man raised a hand to touch him, Mahogany struck. A brutal fight erupted, but to everyone's surprise, the man wasn't an ordinary thug. He was a soldier, and their battle was ferocious. The commotion caught the attention of the train conductor. He stepped out of the control room, gun in hand. But what happened next was entirely unexpected. Instead of breaking up the fight, the conductor looked at Mahogany with disappointment. "What is this? Are you getting weak?" he asked coldly. At that moment, a horrifying truth slowly began to unravel. Mahogany and the conductor were working together in a series of murders taking place on the subway. Elsewhere, Leon jolted awake from a nightmare. In his dream, he was inside a train. His hands were covered in blood. In front of him lay an unknown man, lifeless, and in his grip, a massive hammer. Since that dream, Leon had become even more obsessed. He kept collecting news articles about missing person cases related to the subway. Maya, his girlfriend, grew increasingly worried, but Leon didn't care. He was convinced that Mahogany was the key to all these mysteries. A few days later, Leon made a reckless decision. That night, he returned to the station, determined to capture a closer photograph of Mahogany. He followed the man onto the train, moving through car after car. But then something horrifying happened. At the final stop, several new passengers boarded. They appeared relaxed until Mahogany stood up. With a single swift motion, his massive hammer smashed into a passenger's skull. One by one, Mahogany slaughtered them brutally. Leon froze, his breath caught in his throat. He witnessed everything, a real massacre unfolding right before his eyes. Now he knew for certain. Mahogany was no ordinary butcher. He was a monster, a killer who had been haunting the subway for years. Even with his life at risk, Leon recklessly took photos to expose the truth. He hid in a corner of the train car, his breath shaky as he watched Mahogany meticulously clean up the scene. But what happened next was even more horrifying than he could have imagined. Mahogany began pulling out the victims' teeth, nails, and hair, then hung their bodies inside the train like slabs of meat. Leon felt sick, but he kept taking pictures. Then disaster struck. Mahogany suddenly turned, his cold eyes locked onto Leon. Within seconds, the butcher bolted toward the next train car, chasing Leon with swift, deliberate steps. Panic surged through Leon as he scrambled to escape between the empty seats. But the confined space of the train left him with little room to run. Mahogany caught up with him easily, slamming him against the train wall with overwhelming force. Everything went dark. When he regained consciousness, Leon found himself alive. He was lying on the cold floor of a meat shop. The dim lighting only added to his disorientation. Pain radiated through his entire body, especially in his chest. As he pulled up his shirt, his eyes widened. There, etched into his skin, was a strange symbol carved into his flesh. Returning home brought no relief. Maya, his girlfriend, greeted him with a look of deep concern. "What happened to you?" Leon had no answer. He himself didn't know what had truly happened. But one thing was certain. Mahogany had marked him. Unable to bear Leon's condition any longer, Maya took action. From the photos Leon had taken, she discovered a crucial clue: Mahogany's home address. Without hesitation, Maya convinced Jurgis to go there with her. After breaking in, the two of them searched Mahogany's apartment separately. Jurgis found Leon's missing camera, but in another room, Maya discovered something even more shocking: Mahogany's bag. When she opened it, she found suspicious documents. One of them was a train schedule that had been in operation for over 100 years. Even more horrifying, every schedule had notes about murders. Before she could process it further, a loud noise came from the other room. Maya rushed over, but she was too late. Mahogany had overpowered Jurgis. Terrified, Maya immediately fled to the police station. She told Detective Lin everything she knew, hoping for help. With a blank expression, Lin said, "We didn't find anything in Mahogany's apartment." Maya froze. "That's impossible, I saw it myself." But Lin's gaze remained calm, as if nothing was wrong. Frustrated and furious, Maya stormed out and immediately called Leon. Desperation filled her voice as she said, "Jurgis has been kidnapped by Mahogany." At that moment, Lin suddenly appeared in front of her. "You shouldn't have interfered, Maya." Maya took a step back, and then she noticed something chilling. Around Lin's neck hung a pendant with the same symbol as Mahogany's ring. The 8-pointed star. Without hesitation, Maya grabbed the weapon she had taken from Mahogany's apartment and aimed it at Lin. Lin sighed as if reluctant to explain, but finally, in a casual tone, she said, "He's already been taken onto the train." Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Leon was attending the gallery exhibition, but his mind wasn't there. When his eyes landed on one of his photographs, a portrait of Mahogany, rage consumed him. He couldn't stand by any longer. Without saying goodbye to Susan, Leon left the gallery. But before heading to the subway, he made a stop at the meatpacking plant. He knew that tonight, he wasn't just searching for answers. Tonight he was going to fight. Tonight he was going to kill Mahogany. Once he was ready, Leon headed straight to the subway station. Meanwhile, inside the train, Maya was desperately trying to save Jurgis. As Leon waited for a train to pass, his eyes suddenly caught sight of Maya in one of the cars. Without thinking twice, he jumped in. Inside, Maya was horrified to see several corpses hanging, and one of them was Jurgis. As she tried to free him, Mahogany suddenly appeared behind her. Panicked, Maya immediately fired her gun, but every shot missed. Mahogany kept advancing. Desperate, she ran to the end of the train car, but Mahogany hurled his hammer, striking her leg and sending her crashing to the floor. As Mahogany prepared to kill her, Leon appeared, drawing his attention. Fueled by rage, Leon attacked Mahogany. But Mahogany was too strong. Leon struggled against his brutal onslaught. After an intense battle, Leon finally managed to throw Mahogany out of the train. Maya rushed to Leon, and for a brief moment they felt relieved to have survived. But then the lights inside the train suddenly went out, and it came to a stop in a mysterious place. Out of nowhere, the train conductor appeared and said, "Please step away from the meat." Leon and Maya were confused. But moments later, horrifying creatures emerged and began devouring the corpses hanging in the train car. They immediately ran, escaping the nightmarish scene, until they reached an abandoned subway station. But Mahogany returned. He wasn't dead yet. The final battle began. During the fight, Leon noticed something. He had the same strange symbol on his chest as Mahogany. The brutal fight continued, but in the end, Leon managed to defeat Mahogany. Before taking his last breath, Mahogany uttered only a word: "Welcome." Suddenly, the train conductor approached Leon. With inhuman strength, he lifted Leon's body and ripped out his tongue, then swallowed it whole. The conductor then revealed the horrifying truth. The creatures had lived underground long before the subway was ever built. Mahogany and the conductor had been responsible for feeding them every night. They did this to ensure the creatures never surfaced and threatened the world above. That was why every night Mahogany carried out his gruesome duty, slaughtering train passengers and delivering their bodies as a feast for the monstrous beings. Elsewhere, Maya lay motionless atop a pile of corpses. Perhaps before confronting Leon, the conductor had already incapacitated her. Without hesitation, the conductor reached into Maya's chest and ripped out her heart. He then handed it to Leon, forcing him to swallow the still-beating organ. The next day, a man stood in front of a mirror dressed in a sharp suit. As he raised his hand, a ring with a strange star symbol gleamed on his finger, the same as Mahogany's. Moments later, the man walked toward Detective Lin to retrieve the subway schedule that once belonged to Mahogany. Then he made his way toward the underground train car. His presence had changed. His gaze was hollow, his face emotionless, his posture strong. Leon, he had become Mahogany's successor.